Students, to the second module of this chapter. In this second module, we are going to study a concept, the process of reproduction and DNA copying. Now, in the last module, we stopped with a thought or a question. If an organism is going to produce organisms of the same species, so do organisms create exact copies of themselves? Are we the exact copies of our parents? The kittens that a cat is going to produce, is it going to be the exact copy of each other? Let us find out an answer to this in this module. Dear students, the word reproduction, very much focusing on the word, tells me reproduction, producing something again. Organisms create new individuals which look very much like themselves. Organisms produce organisms that are like themselves, looking similar to themselves. Organisms look similar because their body designs are similar. If you observe here in the image, the size of the zebra is varying. One is the parent, the other is the young one. But they both have 4 legs. They both have similar body structure. There are matching stripes on their body. They both have similar position of their eyes, ears, etc. That means organisms are looking similar because their body designs are similar. And this is because their blueprints have to be similar. Blueprints, nothing else but the genetic material that we have in our cells. The genetic material that defines very much who we are. And because they are similar, the organisms that are born are also similar. Reproduction is nothing else that means, but it is making the copies of the blueprint. If an organism is going to reproduce and produce a similar organism, that means nothing else is happening, but the blueprint is getting copied again and again. Let us understand this more by a process. Every living organism has cells in their body. Cell is the basic unit of life. Every structure in our body is made up of cell. Every function in our body takes place inside the cell. That means for every life process, we have a special set of cells. So if it is a process of reproduction, we have special reproducing cells in our body. Every cell will have a nucleus. Let me take you down the memory lane. Last year we all studied inside the nucleus there are fine colorful thread-like structures called as the chromatin fibers. They condense and coil around themselves, becoming short colored chromosome. These chromosomes are none other than the DNA molecule wound around itself, and through various chemical reactions, DNA copies are made during the process of reproduction. Students, the chromosome that we see in the image is nothing else but it is a strand of DNA. It is our genetic blueprint called as deoxyribonucleic acid. And when a cell has to divide, first the copies of the blueprint are created through various chemical reactions. That means from one DNA, now we are going to have 2 copies of DNA. When the cell is about to divide, now these DNA copies will enter their respective new cells. That means now the newborn cells have 2 DNA copies created with various chemical reactions. And we all know when chemical reactions take place, there are some minor changes that take place and they give rise to something called as variations. So if these 2 cells have the same DNA copies, but the copies are slightly different, to each other, that means they cannot be identical. Instead, they are similar. And if the newborn cells are going to have similar DNA copies and not identical, then the organisms produced will also be similar but not identical. This gives rise to variations, and variation creates biodiversity. So in the next module, let us understand the importance of variation.